Yeah, I usually play mid or high tops. Yeah.
What's your favorite sneaker, dude?
These, and Nike discontinued these. So I have like 4 or 5 pairs that I just circulate so they can last longer.
Show them real quick.
I think they're called Jumpman or something. Hey, what's up? This is Stephen Wolf, and you're watching Season 3 of High Tops to High Hats. Yeah, well, according to my mom, when she was pregnant with me, anytime she was around music, I'd be kicking, so she said he's going to be a drummer.
Ah, I see.
And from the time I was a little kid, I guess it was just like always banging on shit, like we all started out. And so they got me a toy kit when I was 3, but it wasn't one of those kits that had like clowns and stuff painted on it.
Right.
It looked like a real drum set, just scaled down. So I thought they were real drums, even though they were like cardboard shells.
Right.
I destroyed those and then went back to pots and pans. And then I got my first real kit when I was about 7.
Okay.
I was like a no-name, one of those imports. And then I got an actual like a nice kit, but secondhand 60s kit from my teacher, the late great Elaine Watts.
Okay.
And so I've been playing like real drums since I was 7, but started as early as I can remember.
So you took lessons at that time?
That's when I started taking lessons.
Oh.
Didn't have a great music program. At least the marching band was, our sports, Philly sports, not Philly, Lower Merion, where I went to high school. Great sports. Not that there have always been some badass musicians in my high school and neighboring high schools. A lot of great players have come out of there and continue to come out of there. But I remember our high school, like football games, like our team would be destroying the other teams, but halftime, they'd have like these full-on drum corps like halftime shows with the other high schools, and we had this like janky, like just no formation, like nothing. We just kind of like single file.
Throw it to whoever could play drums just show up.
Yeah, but great musicians. We just like the school that their priority wasn't. I mean, there was at least a music program, that's a good thing. A lot of high schools don't even have that anymore. But I was doing more outside of school. Like I was playing with some great players. So. And most of the cats I was playing with by the time I was actually starting in junior high have all gone on to like be heavyweights in like their one guy's a big film and TV guy now.
Right.
Another guy was a signed artist and now he's a mega producer and songwriter. And another guy, Facebook, I haven't talked to him since we were 18. He's like, hey, he just hit me up. He was like, you live in New York, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm playing with Jay-Z at the Barclay Center tonight if you want to come. And it's like, so it's like, everybody is like doing their thing. But I got my first drum machine when I was in high school because we grew up with hip hop.
Yeah.
Like the first hip hop records. And I just remember hearing like the first Run DMC record with Sucker MCs. And I didn't know at the time that it was like an Oberheim drum machine. I just was like, I knew it was some type of drum machine.
Right.
And then like the early Prince records with the Lindrum. And I was like, I like these sounds. Or somebody who lives out here, I'm friends with David Frank from The System. I remember hearing like You Were in My System with like the 32nd note hi-hat program. Or the Time, 7779311.
Yep.
All that shit, I was like, I want to be able to make those sounds. Okay. And even though you can play them on the kit, it's just aesthetically, it sounds different when it's coming from a machine. So I saved up and I got like a cheap Yamaha. It was like the poor man's Lindrum. And I was programming beats.
RD8?
I want to say it was the RX something. They made 3, they're like this RX11. Like each number was like a more expensive one.
Okay.
So I had one of them. And then I got a Roland R8 later.
Okay.
After I dropped out of Berklee. And then in New York, I got my first MPC, and then I used an MPC for years. But I was programming at Berklee, but I didn't really have many opportunities to do it. I was mostly just deep in the drumming thing at Berklee. And the first night I got to school, I walked around the practice rooms.
Yeah.
And I was relieved to know that I was definitely like, because we were all hot shots in our hometowns.
Exactly.
And then you get to Berklee and there's hundreds of us.
Right.
And then like everybody was like a great drummer. There were some people that weren't that great, but most of us could all play at that point. And but I was relieved, and I was like, all right, I can hang with everybody. And then I walk by this one room and I hear this dude just like blazing. And sounded easily as good as anybody we were listening to at that time. He had like Vinnie chops.
Right.
I guess Vinnie and Weckl were kind of like, at that point, were right before Dennis kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
But like as far as fusion chops, it was like Vinnie, Weckl, Gad, that whole school. And this dude was just so fluid. And I just playing all that fluid shit in on time signatures, but with like a fat pocket. And he was young. Like, probably 20 or something, and I just like sat outside his room, and when he came out, I introduced myself, and I was like, who are you?
Right.
How do I get to be as good as you? Just like naive, but purely innocent.
Yeah,
and just he was really cool. He's like, I don't know, man, just like practice. So, well, I had recently, like, I guess my last year in high school, I got hip to Tommy Campbell, who was still teaching at Berklee when we were there, on a Kevin Eubanks record.
Yeah.
And I was a big fusion head, like Dennis kind of blew up while we were at school.
Yeah.
I remember not going to see Dennis playing with Schofield because I thought Omar had played on the previous record.
Right.
And I was like, oh, if Omar's not on the gig, they're like, oh, it's some guy named Dennis somebody. I was like,
that was
I'm not going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, if it's not Omar, I'm not going. I don't know this Dennis guy.
Yeah.
And then the next day, somebody had a cassette tape of the show, and I was like, who the fuck is this? And then like everybody else, just transcribing his shit. Yeah. But I was really into Cobham, and so when I heard Tommy, that was like the same school. So I was like trying to learn all Tommy shit. And so when I got to Berklee, one of the first week of school at the Berklee Performance Center, it was like the Tommy Campbell group.
Right.
And Tishy was there. This is like 87 maybe?
Yeah.
86, 87, because I dropped out a little after you got there.
Yep.
And but yeah, so Tommy was, like just jaw dropping. But then while I was at school, Zach Alfred.
Yeah.
He was the first guy I heard playing just kick snare hat.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't even see him. I was walking by the ensemble rooms one night and I just heard what sounded like bass guitar and drums. It was actually one guy, I forget the dude's name, who was playing through a looping pedal. He would play like some funk bass shit, then plug a guitar in and do multiple rhythm guitar parts and then solo over it. And it was just him and Zach, but I was like, man, what the fuck is this? And I look in and it's just the dude with the looping pedal and Zach kick snare hat and one crack cymbal.
Yeah.
And killing it.
Laying it down.
And he was, Zach, born and raised in New York, he was coming from that school.
Right.
So, like, he had that thing, like that Steve Jordan, Charlie Drayton, like
exactly.
that kind of New York, like, funky pocket thing.
Right.
And I had never heard that up close. I'd seen Charlie and Steve play, but, like, never just right there.
Right.
So same thing. He comes out. I'm like, man, who are you? And at that point, I was already kind of doing well at school, and I was like kind of working my way up, like in the roster of drummers. But I was like, man, I just like, how do you play that way?
Yeah.
And like the next day, no toms on my kit. It was just because not only that, it was like he did that because coming up in New York, you got to get your. And as soon as I moved to New York, I realized
throw it in the cab,
that's the only way to get around.
Yeah.
I call it the taxi kit.
So were you doing programming then too?
Sorry, I should also say Tishy. Tishy was a beast from day
one.
one.
Yeah.
And we would shed together a lot. So I know he says he got some fusion stuff from me. I got some rock stuff from him. But if we could sit here for an hour, and there's so many other drummers I'm not even getting to.
Yeah, exactly.
That I learned something from all of them.
Yeah.
So many great drummers when we were there.
I brought a bag here.
Cool.
And it's full of, I just grabbed some from my house. Okay. And so I'm going to have you blindly pull something out.
Okay.
And to me, it'll be like a ink blot test. So right when you see it, tell me what comes to your mind.
Okay.
Whether it's the drummer, the artist, the album cover, whatever.
All right. And if I don't recognize it, we'll edit it out.
Yeah. No peeking, no.
I just saw what's in the
bag.
bag.
I know you saw that one. I'm going to mix it up.
Okay.
So here we go.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I just cut the deck, and he pulls out.
All right. I think I had this on vinyl. I actually sold all my vinyl recently.
Why, dude? Why?
Return Forever. I saw this lineup in Philly when I was a kid, and Stanley Clark's from Philly. Return Forever, another one of those like early fusion bands where they were like legit rock stars.
Yep.
A lot of respect for these guys. Don't love listening to it anymore. And I remember getting called to audition for BagOVinyl, and that was a whole thing. I made it to the callbacks where they're like, okay, because at first it was just for his MD. They're like, okay, Al wants to play with you. But then we talked bread and other things, and I was like, I think this is good, because I was already playing with Grover Washington at the time, which to me, there's not a cooler gig for instrumental music than that. So yeah, I mean, it would have been cool to do it, but it wasn't going to work.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, look, Lenny White, also style icon.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, not really my cup of tea aesthetically anymore, but this was the shit when I was a kid. So
yeah,
all respect.
That's our roots
to
right
these
there,
guys.
man.
Yeah. Did I tell you my Garibaldi story?
You kind of did.
Yeah.
You could tell them, though.
Okay. All right. Garibaldi's a huge influence. And when we were kids, it wasn't like, it was pre-internet. So I didn't really know what Garibaldi looked like, except for like an old, maybe, I think he did a Rogers drum ad or something before he was with Yamaha. And then also just Tower Power, like pictures like that. But, you know, this is what he looked like back then. So in the 90s, I'm playing the Monterey Jazz Festival with Grover. And I had a big solo, including all the electronic shit. I would start out with the chop shit, double kick, all that stuff, and then go into the electronics. And I'm walking through the audience afterwards, and some just nondescript white guy comes up to me. And he's like, hey, you the drummer with Grover? I said, yeah. And he's like, man, I really dug your solo. And but he starts saying specifically, he's like, you know, playing over that vamp in 5/4, whatever. And I'm like, obviously you're a drummer. And he said, yeah. And I was like, cool. Are you playing today? He said, well, I'm playing with a local band on like the small stage. And I'm like, that's cool. And I'm like, I'm Stephen Wolf. And he's like, David Garibaldi. And I just stopped. And I'm like, the David Garibaldi, and he realized that I felt like an idiot. He was really cool. He's like, yeah, and I was like, man, I couldn't talk for a minute. And then when I gathered my composure, I was like, man, can I get your number?
Right.
Like, do you teach? Whatever. Just and I was like, and I'll be right back. I got to get the rest of the band because we all listen to Tower Power on the bus every day. So.
Yeah.
But he couldn't have been nicer. You keep leaving one on top. Oh, yes. Definitely had this on vinyl. What's up, Bay
Area hero right there.
What's up, Annie Newmark, if you're watching? I'm friends with Newmark and I'm friends with Greg Errico. You should get Greg Errico on this because he's actually an athlete. Well, he bikes everywhere.
See?
And he lives out here.
Okay. Well.
Remind me. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, last year I was at NAMM with Greg and Matt Kimball, who was my tour manager with Hiram Bullock, who I met when I was a kid when he was working with Billy Cobham. Matt's like best friends with Greg, and so Matt has worked with Sly. Right. Anyway, so like that's a whole other side story. But yeah, I remember buying this on vinyl when I was a kid, and just like everybody else, blew my mind. And I love Sly and the Family Stone, and I love every era. Like. The original lineup, that's my shit. Yep. With Larry Graham and Greg, that rhythm section. But like this is, I think, Rusty Allen on bass. Yep. Newmark on drums, equally cool, just different. Yep. And I feel like this is kind of Sly's last great record because after that there were moments of greatness, but it just started. I agree, dude. I agree. I think Small Talk was after this. Yep. Was that Bill Lorden on drums? I'm not sure. It might have been. But I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. Either way, that had like Loose Booty on it. I think. Anyway. But this album, I mean, I have like, I don't really listen to music when I'm not working. I don't really listen to music anymore. Me either. I'll do it for research because I got to stay current with sounds and stuff. But but there's a handful of records I want to listen to for fun, and this is one of them. When Apple Music came out and Spotify, when streaming became a thing, the first thing I did was like just kind of rebuild my entire record collection. But then I was just, you can add anything. I was like, I was like, I haven't listened to Rush in a while. So like in the last year, I started listening to a little bit, and just remember, and it brought me back to like how important this record was and how it changed so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I grew like a newfound respect for Neil Peart. And even though like I don't list him as one of my major influences, I fully recognize that if there's like a Mount Rushmore for drummers, he's absolutely up there.
For sure.
Yeah. And I was surprised. I was surprised that I was moved when he passed.
Let's
Okay.
jump a little bit
Yeah.
to your style. Because when even back in the day when I met you, you had your own shit.
Oh, the two different color shoes?
No, but but you know, you had your hair.
I had long hair, yeah.
You had earrings, you had, you know, the bandanas, tank tops, robes. I see you with robes and shit, or like kimonos, you know, long shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, basketball shoes.
Yeah.
And then now you got the tats.
Yeah.
You've always been the style cat. To me, I always remembered you. I was like, oh, okay, I remember that dude.
Cool,
what was the first tat you got? Because when I met you, you didn't have it.
It's just my name, Wolf, but like stylized. So if you don't look at it, you're not sure that it actually says Wolf up here. And I just started building from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when was that?
Early 90s.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Right after I left Berklee.
Oh, okay.
I mean, actually, no. I left Berklee in '89, so maybe 2 years after.
Okay.
Yeah. So more and more, they wanted the shows to sound like the records, and they wanted somebody who could trigger the kick and snare sounds and play with loops and do whatever, and mimic the sound of a drum machine if necessary. Because some artists didn't want to be playing with tracks, but they still wanted that vibe. So
when is this, 90, 89, 90?
89 is when I started doing that, and then by 95 was when I started getting pop tours, because I was still doing like smooth jazz and stuff the first half of the 90s. And then the bigger gigs, the electronics were more and more. And now it's like you don't see a major tour now without a drummer having like an SPD or whatever. But back then, we didn't call it hybrid drumming. There were just a handful of us getting into that.
Right.
So, yeah, but it's by 90, and I was always doing session work too. But in 99 is when I decided to just take a leap of faith, just not tour at all.
I see.
And just do sessions. And I knew that there wasn't enough session work for live drums to be able to afford to live in New York.
Yeah.
Without augmenting it with the programming. So, but nobody was hiring people just to program drums then, or very few people, because they wanted, either producers were programming themselves, but programming the whole track, or what we call a beat now, we would call it the whole track.
Right.
And so in order for people to justify spending money to hire me, I had to invest in a whole rig, not just an MPC, but I had to be able to program the synths and do full tracks.
Right.
And then after doing that long enough, I guess people realized that when it came to drum programming, I could offer something that most keyboard player programmers couldn't do. Because I could do the basic stuff that you don't have to be a drummer to do, but I could also do more drumistic type programming.
Right.
And then a lot of people who hired me to program didn't even know that I played drum kit.
And then once techie guy.
Yeah, and once they learn, because I wouldn't bring it up, because I'm working on these records where there are no live drums.
Right.
So, and I'm just there to do a job. So when people started finding out that I played real drums, then I kind of started to carve out this niche for myself, where it's like I'm a drummer and I'm just a rhythm guy. Right. Acoustic drums programmed or a mixture, like I'm the guy for that. I'm programming on a bunch of shit. So it's the kind of thing where, like, when I was working on Katy Perry's first record, I just included her in a bunch of shit. I didn't know, like, her first record was gonna sell like millions. So I'm always doing, for every major label artist I'm working with, there's like 20 or 30 indie artists, and usually one of them will do something like blow up. But you know, the reality of a working session musician is that I just treat every gig with the same level of passion and respect, and you know, try to just like serve the music. So in LA, where we're at now, I am mostly doing a programming work out here, because all the producers I work with, they already have their local drummers, and I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes.
Right.
So I'm going back to New York next week, so I'll be doing some drumming there and programming. But I do a lot of remote programming wherever I am.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So again, Stephen Wolf is in the house. Season 3, High Tops or Hi-Hats. Peace. So rest in peace,
Yeah.
Mr. Neil Peart, the professor.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Mamba, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Same high school,
Yeah.
10 years earlier.
Yeah.
Philadelphia in the house. So I want to thank you so much,
Thanks
man,
for having me.
sitting down here
Yeah.
with this dope ass background in
Yeah.
an undisclosed area that you are not allowed to know. But it might be the funkiest place that we've shot so far. So
Nice.
this is gonna be hard to beat.
All right.